reduce physical pain. It relieves stress. It releases anxiety. It bridges us with our ancestors. It connects us with our enemies, and it unites us with our neighbors. What is it that could be this powerful and have this great of an impact, not just on our modern society, but on the world over? And the answer is music. It's music, and it's one of the most powerful forces in the entire world. One man said that I think music is healing. It is an explosive expression of humanity. It's something we are all touched by, no matter what culture we're from. Everyone loves music. That from the piano man himself, Billy Joel. I think he touches upon a theme that we need to understand: the power and the impact of music in our lives. Oftentimes we come together as the church and we want to talk about music, and it seems the only thing that we examine or we really talk about is what music in the church is not. But I want us to understand that God did not give us music in the church just to argue over what we can't use in the church. God gave us music because it offers something to the Christian. It offers something to Christian living. It offers something to sacred worship. And this morning I want to spend some time talking about music in the church without having to talk about instrumental music. The elements of music that we see, rhythm, melody, harmony, those are all things that are hardwired within us. These elements themselves reflect God in the universe. Think about the movement and the structure of the creation, the celestial dance of the stars, all connected to the elements of music when we start seeing order and melody and rhythm within them. And then we see God as the great conductor. In Isaiah 40, as he calls the Pleiades into their place and all the host from the resting place. It is God in a grand orchestra, the symphony of which is us. It is our place in the universe. Music came into existence long before it came into the church. From the cradle of civilization, what we know as the Chaldean, the Sumerians, from the cradle of civilization, we find music. The Sumerians themselves of Sumer gave the first record of music about 5,000 years ago. They described several instruments that they had created, even music schools where children were taught how to play those instruments to bring peace to the people. The oldest artifacts of instruments of music that have been found were from Ur of Chaldees, Abraham's hometown. We find there stringed instruments and beaten brass, indicating that music far exceeds even the beginning of the church. Contemporary with Abraham, the ancient Babylonians were writing musical notations. We found actual scripts or music scripts that they used and are similar to what we've seen today. Ancient Egypt even also depicts different instruments within their culture, the most common of which was the harp itself. But by far, the most recorded, well-documented music from the ancient world comes from Israel, the people of God, including songs and instruments, psalms and odes, even rhythm and style notations in the writings of the ancient Hebrews. Out of this rich tradition of music in the world, God gave the church music. Doesn't that say something about the importance of music itself in our lives? How often do we get in the car and we've got the top 40 playing, or maybe the oldies and the goodies, or whatever the station is that you listen to? Sometimes you just get tired of talk radio and you turn it over to the country station and enjoy a little George Strait or something, right? Music, because it touches us. It bonds us together, binds us together, and draws us in. We think about the verses in the Bible that talk about music within the church, like Ephesians 5 and verse 19, and dressing one another in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, singing and making melody to the Lord with your heart. You see, the music of the church is to touch what? The heart. In fact, that is the instrument upon which we play the great praises and hymns toward God. Or as Mark read for us this morning, Mike read for us this morning in Colossians 3:16, let the word of Christ dwell in you richly, teaching and admonishing one another in all wisdom, singing psalms and hymns and spiritual songs with thankfulness in your hearts to God. Even James, the brother of the Lord himself, would say, is anyone among you suffering? Let him pray. Is anyone cheerful? Let him sing songs. You notice the connection again to the emotional state of man. If any among you is merry, let him sing songs or let him sing praises unto God. So this morning I want to look at the power of music in the church and why it is important, an important part of our worship and Christian life. Why God gave it to us, not just to argue about what music in the church isn't, but what it is. I think, first of all, the thing that we see here is that music expresses emotions. One writer said, where words stop, music begins. History's repository of music evokes the gamut of mankind's emotions. Tears fall with the soaring arias, and hearts leap to attention to a good John Philip Sousa march, doesn't it? And then our fists curl with rage when we hear the Imperial March of Star Wars. The rhythm, the patterns, the harmonies, the lyrics, they all stir our hearts. See, that's the power of music. And it exists in the psalms and the hymns and the spiritual songs of the church. Think about just a few of the ideas. Joy. Do songs evoke joy in us? I think of Psalm 103, verses 1 through 5, when he says, bless the Lord, O my soul, and all that is within me. Bless his holy name. Bless the Lord, O my soul, and forget not all his benefits, who forgives all of your iniquities, who heals all your diseases, who redeems your life from the pit, who crowns you with the steadfast love and mercy, who satisfies you with good so that your youth is renewed like the eagles. Those are some great words of joy, aren't they? Think about in this life, what gives you more joy than knowing your soul has been redeemed from the pit of hell? That God has lifted you out of the mire and the muck of the sin that you lived in. That God has overcome your bad choices with the sacrifice of His Son. Joy. We read those psalms or we sing other songs about joy and our hearts automatically are lifted. But at the same time, music can come to us and bring sorrow. Scott led, one of my favorite songs, Night with Ebon Pinion brooded o'er the vale. All around was silent save the night wind's wail. When Christ, the man of sorrows and tears and sweat and blood, prostrate in the garden, raised his voice to God. We are introduced to this idea of the darkness and the blackness of the trial that Jesus faced. As a hen would brood down over her chicks, the night has brooded down over the valley. And here is Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, praying with tears and sweat and blood. Sorrow. We sing those words. Does that not touch our heart? We sing that song to prepare our minds for the Lord's Supper. And the reason is because it does bring that sorrow, the gravity of the moment to us. Or wrath. Do songs have the ability to make us angry? Of course they do. Psalm 5, beginning in verse 9 says, for there is no truth in their mouth. Their inmost self is destruction. Their throat is an open grave. They flatter with their tongues. Make them bear their guilt, O God. One of the great imprecatory psalms. Make them bear their guilt, O God. Let them fall by their own counsels. Because of the abundance of their transgressions, cast them out, for they have rebelled against you. This was one of the songs that ancient Israel would sing about their enemies who had become impediments to the grace and the ways of God themselves. And notice what they're doing. They're praying, they're singing for God to visit destruction on them because of their transgressions. Do you get the feeling that the psalmist and the children are angry with their enemies? We don't often pray such imprecatory prayers today, especially in public places like the church's gatherings, but hopefully at home you pray for the failures of the devil, for the ways of the world that are killing innocents, that are harming families, that are destroying society. I hope that you pray for their failure and their destruction on a daily basis. At least it would align us with God, who hates to see such transgression too. Or what about love? Do songs sometimes invoke love in our hearts? Some of the great love songs, the Everly Brothers' Unchained Melodies. Scott knew I was going there, didn't you? Do they not touch us and make us feel ooey gooey inside somehow? That's a technical term, by the way, ooey gooey. All my heart to Him I give, ever to Him I'll cling. In His blessed presence live, ever His praises sing. Love so mighty and so true merits my soul's best song. Faithful, loving service to Him belongs. Because love lifted me. When nothing else could help, love lifted me. You see, these are the gamuts of emotion, and we could go on and on about the different emotions, and when we look at them, we understand that emotions themselves are powerful feelings that stir us and prod us into action. The music of the church seeks to tap into those emotions and help motivate people to move. From the invitation song, pleading with sinners to respond to the grace of God, to the songs for the Lord's Supper that focus our hearts toward the memorial, to the closing song that encourage us to leave through the doors and go and not just live out the message, but to change the world. Isn't that what it is? It should be a rousing celebration that the power we have through God is able to change the world. Music expresses these kinds of emotions, and we need to be thankful for it. But music also tells stories. It's the central tenet of Christianity. Tell the story of Jesus. The church has the most important story to tell. And we have to understand that music helps us tell that story. Civilization has long been using songs to pass their traditions and their stories from age to age. Well known are the oral traditions of inland Africa and the Aborigines of Australia. Likewise, the Pacific Islanders are noted for their songs that tell the stories. From bards to minstrels, every one of them had a place in human society and civilization to pass the tales and the exploits and the heroism that we see down through the ages. The Bible contains many songs that have been saved for us, recorded for us, to tell successive generations of the greatness of God's work. Sunday morning last week, we went through Exodus 15 and the Song of Moses as the nation of Israel crossed over dry land at the Red Sea by the power of God again. And as they got to the other side, they turned and they looked back, and the waters came together and engulfed a pursuing Egyptian army so that Pharaoh's army is destroyed. And they write a song about it to tell the next generation and the next generation and the next generation about the exploits of God. One of my favorite lines in the song comes in verse 5. And the enemies of God dropped like stones in the water. How weak and impotent they were, crashing against the power of God and coming up short time and time again. It was only a few chapters later that Deborah, who was chosen as a judge, one of the military leaders of the Old Testament during the time of Judges, they go against their enemy, her with her assistant Barak. And they go and they defeat the enemy. And when it comes back in Judges chapter 5, they sing a song. Or the Psalms themselves, many of which record the greatness of God and His delivering power. Or in 2 Samuel chapter 18, when the women met Saul and David and the returning army after Goliath is defeated. Saul has killed his thousands, and David his 10,000s. The stories were told over and over through song. Songs in the church tell our story too, don't they? They remind us of the past, they provoke us in the present, and they turn our hearts toward the future, that there is a heavenly home waiting for us, because this world is not my home, and all the other songs that we sing. They are our stories. They tell our hearts. We sing them over and over and over again to pass to the next generation. They sing of the work of God for man's salvation, of the cross of Jesus as a sacrifice. Beneath the cross of Jesus, I fain would take my stand, or on a hill far away stood an old rugged cross. They tell our story. Or the exile's journey to salvation, how the sinner who was once lost and exiled in darkness has been found. Once I stood in the night with my head bowed low, in the darkness as black as could be, and my heart felt alone, and I cried, "O Lord, don't hide your face from me. Hold my hand all the way, every hour, every day, from here to the great unknown. Take my hand and let me stand where no one stands alone." It's the great story that every Christian could tell of themselves, where they've been, where they are, where they're going. And it tells my story. The expectation of heaven, right? How beautiful heaven must be. The work that we engage in now as Christians, serving the Lord, I love to tell the story. To the work, we are servants of God. In the vineyard of the Lord, they tell of our work. That's part of our story. Music tells stories, even in the church. Music also unites hearts. Think about music in the church. It rallies our hearts around a common goal. Addressing one another in psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs, Ephesians 5:19, or teaching and admonishing one another in Colossians 3 and verse 16. As Jesus finished His teaching on this earth, He and His disciples sang a hymn. Matthew 26 and verse 30. It was a moment of solidarity, worship, and unity, and it was meant, I think, to strengthen their hearts in the hour of desperation. They were about to face the greatest trial they had ever faced. And what does He do? He ties their hearts together in song, the greatness of God. While imprisoned in Philippi, Paul and Silas sang hymns together. What did it do? It stilled the restless inmates of the prison. It captivated their attention so that when the earthquake came and the doors opened, even those that were imprisoned justly stayed. It united and strengthened Paul and Silas to bear the burdens of imprisonment in Acts 16. In the church, the music of song unites our hearts in praise and worship and adoration of the Creator. Our hearts themselves proclaim our joy, our hope, our struggles, our dependence upon God. In song, we make known or make promises to God and to one another about what we are willing to do, dedicating our hearts and our lives to this Christian endeavor. Our songs unite us under the banner and the blood of Christ. In heavenly armor, we will enter the land, the battle, belongs to the Lord. Or, in the field I would wield sickles brave and true, and in the fight for the right I would dare and do, and spend my days in thy praise all my journey through. Let me live close to thee each day. Or if just a cup of water I place within your hand, then just a cup of water is all that I demand. But if by death to living they can thy glory see, I'll take my cross and I'll follow close to thee. The songs we sing in worship together bind us, draw us into intimacy, not only with God, but into intimacy with one another. And then finally, music also connects us. Music connects us to God, the great conductor. If we could picture God in heaven with his arms raised, and he is directing the orchestra itself, calling into existence the stars, pulling the sun from its resting place during the night, causing the earth to spin and the galaxy to hurl through the universe itself. And in the midst of this great musical score is humanity, the crown jewel of all of God's creation. All of that is created for me. And God created me to appreciate his beauty. And so music, the beauty of song, it connects me to this God who is conducting us in his orchestra. Music connects us to the Savior, who himself in moments of trials sang praise unto God. And here we sing praise, the same thoughts, sometimes even the same words, which Jesus himself sang. Music connects us to the apostles who joined with Jesus in song, who later rallied the church to sing songs so that we ourselves are connected to them. And it connects us to one another. Maybe some morning while you're waiting for the coffee to brew and you're unrolling the newspaper, Amazing Grace comes to your lips. Or those times when you are driving and you turn off the car radio and you sing the songs that were sung here today. Or maybe an old favorite hymn of your mom and dad or your grandparents. It's one of the things I remember vividly about my grandpa. Riding in the car with him and Grandma, and he's singing, "Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life." My brother, I don't think, knows a single hymn by heart, but he knows that one because it connected us. Connected us to our grandparents, connected us to one another. Connects us as the brothers and sisters in Christ. God has given us the gift of music and voice to praise him. Through him, then, let us continually offer up a sacrifice of praise to God. That is the fruit of lips that acknowledges his name. Hebrews 13 and verse 15. Our songs, not only do they do all these wonderful things, but our songs are put upon the altar of sacrifice to God. It is part of our gift to him. So when we join in song, no voice is better, prettier, or more valuable. All of God's children join in a single chorus of song, and we offer it to God as our sacrifice on the first day of the week or any other day of the week that we come together and we worship God in song. It is the infinite choir that begins right here, and it continues with us all the way to there. And in that choir is a spot for you. And you may say, how do I join this choir? You become his child. You allow God's conducting to draw you into the fold which he has created. This morning, if you're ready to join that choir, to obey the gospel, to become his child, we invite you with song to come while we stand and sing it.